Hello, good evening. My name is Catherine and I work with SEB Housing. This is the information session for the affordable rental unit that's going to be offered at the Parkside in Wakefield. And the purpose of this information session is to give you a little bit of background information on the available unit. I'll also cover the application and eligibility, as well as the lottery process and what to expect after the lottery. So if you're watching this after the fact and you have any questions for us, please know that the best way or the easiest way to get in touch with us is to email info@sebhousing.com. You can also give us a call at this 617 number on your screen as well. So just for some background information on who we are, so SEB Housing, we're an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we're not the on-site management team for the Parkside, but we've been hired by the developer to market the affordable unit, conduct this information session, and collect and review applications for the lottery to determine an applicant's eligibility for the affordable housing program. So in the initial phases of this process, we're your main point of contact rather than the management team. But then further along in the process, the on-site management team at the Parkside will take over as your main point of contact. So there's a few steps in the process. The first is to apply for the lottery if you're interested in this opportunity, and then hopefully you're found to be eligible to be entered into the lottery based off of what you self-report on your application. So during that process, any questions that you have will be answered by SEB Housing, and you'll be in touch with us. The lottery will be run, and then we generate the waiting list, or in this case, there's only one waiting list for one unit. And your position on the waiting list, if it's high enough, you'll be then put in touch with the leasing office to complete your lease eligibility screening, which is separate from SEB Housing affordable housing program screenings. So your lease screening with the leasing office could include credit checks, rental history checks, background checks, that sort of thing. And you'll reserve the apartment if you are found to be lease eligible by their leasing team. After lease eligibility, you're going to be referred back to SEB Housing to complete a program certification. So that's the point in the process where you'll be needing to provide supporting documentation to us, like verification of the income that you've indicated on your application, tax returns, bank statements, that sort of thing. So just a note, to apply for this lottery, you don't need to submit upfront. You don't need to submit any income verifications like pay stubs or anything. You just need to complete the lottery application. So you're self-reporting what your income is, and then later on in the process, you'll be required to submit supporting documentation. So if you haven't already, we encourage you to go to our website. So let me get right here, sebhousing.com. If you click on that, and click on affordable housing opportunities and then go to I want to rent. Since this is a rental opportunity, you'll see the Parkside as one of the options for you to click on, and you'll be taken to a page specific to the Parkside once you click on that with downloadable versions of the application and the information packet. The information packet contains most of the information that I'm going to be going over during tonight's session. And you'll see that the application can be submitted to us in one of several ways. The first is you can download that PDF version of the application and submit it to us by email. You can scan it in, just send it as an attachment. That's the most popular way to get it into us. We also have a fax number listed on the first page of the application. So if you have access to a fax and you want to do that, you can. You can also send it to us by regular mail. Or if you're in the Needham area, that's where our office is located. So there's a drop box there as well that you can send it to. All the instructions are on the first page of the application. Whichever one of those options is best for you, please submit it to us in that way. We encourage you to get your lottery application in early. It's fairly brief, shouldn't take you too long to complete. And again, there's no supporting documentation that's needed at this early stage. Applications are due by June 30th, so just a few weeks left to get that in there. This is a typo here, so I'm sorry about that. This should say June 30th. That's when applications are due. And then you don't need to be a resident of Wakefield to apply for this lottery. So there's no preference for local households or anything like that. The apartment is ready for occupancy now, so there won't be a delay of any kind after the lottery for households to get leased. So the Parkside, it's a new building that is a mixed-use development adjacent to Nizella Park with just 7 apartments in the building. Each of the units, including the affordable unit, is a corner unit. And there is a view of the park from it. There are modern finishes. They're all 2 bedrooms. So this is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment with just over 1,000 square feet. The rent for the affordable unit is going to be $2,701. That affordable rent is set in accordance with a formula that the Affordable Housing Program sets, and it is based off of HUD, so the Federal Housing and Urban Development Area Median Income for the Wakefield, Boston area. And since there will be more interested applicants than there are available units, there's only 1 available unit in this case, we're going to have this lottery process. The lottery is only open to households who have total household incomes at or below 80% of the area median income. And the rent does not change based off of the applicant or the household's income. So this isn't like subsidized housing where you know someone has a voucher, their income changes, the rent fluctuates. This affordable housing program, the rent is the rent. It could change, it could increase once per year when the rent is recalculated based off of HUD's AMIs, but that change would not occur within any term of your lease. So if you signed a lease, for example, for August 1st of this year, your rent would be $2,701 for that first year of the lease at minimum. So in terms of who's eligible for the lottery and for the affordable housing program, there's 4 eligibility requirements. The first being, like I mentioned, households have to have an income at or below these maximum income limits that are on your screen here. So if you're a 1-person household, you'd only be eligible for this lottery if your total household income is at or below $92,650. And then it goes up from there based on household size. The second eligibility criteria to keep in mind is that for eligibility purposes, a household priority is given based off of household composition. So for example, if you're a 1-person household or a couple that shares a bedroom, you're generally considered to be a type 1 household. So you can apply for a 2-bedroom unit, but larger type 2 households are going to be placed ahead of you on the waiting list for this apartment because it is a 2-bedroom unit. So the affordable housing program is just designed in that way so that households that may not necessarily need the extra bedroom don't have priority for households who require 2 bedrooms. And then a third eligibility criteria, households can't own a home upon move-in. So if you own a home right now, it would need to be sold and your name would have to be off the deed for you to be able to complete that program certification with SDB Housing to lease one of these apartments. And then it doesn't come up very often, but if you work for the developer or if you work for the management company, that would mean that you're considered to be a related party on this affordable housing program. So you wouldn't be eligible for this lottery if that applies to you. And then just to circle back on the first eligibility criteria, so since this is an affordable apartment, it's being made available to rent at a price that's lower than the identical units or very similar units within the building. Other 2-bedrooms, market rate 2-bedrooms in the building are renting for between about $3,200 and $3,500 a month. So the $2,700 amount is, a good amount off the rent, which is what's making it the more affordable unit. And just a reminder again, you don't have to submit verification when you apply for the lottery, but we are going to, if you are approved for the lottery, you're going to be sent a documentation requirements guide, which is just kind of meant to be a cheat sheet that you can look at and refer back to so you know what types of documentation we will need from you eventually, how many pay stubs, how many bank statements. So if you're approved for this lottery, you're going to get an email with a link to that guide. So just make sure you take a look at that if you are approved. So it'll give you a basic overview of what to expect. So even though you don't need to submit that verification yet, just want to give you a basic overview of how we are required to calculate income. So for this program, your income is going to be counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. The only exceptions to that would be if you have minors, so anybody under 18 in the household who's earning a wage, we don't count wage income for minors. Or if you have a dependent full-time student, maybe you have a college student living with you, only the first $480 of a full-time student, a dependent full-time student will be counted towards your total household income. We have to count gross income, even though most people obviously aren't making their gross income. So the amount before taxes is what we need to count regardless of what you actually take home for a salary. And then how we count income is not really one size fits all because everyone's circumstances are unique. So if you're self-employed or you work per diem, we may need to ask you for more pay stubs or more information than we might from someone who has pay stubs that are very consistent throughout the year and they make the same amount each week. So in general, any income that you have been making, we're going to need to assume that you'll be making it going forward. So if you send in tax returns that show that you worked 2 jobs last year, we're going to need information from both jobs if you're no longer working there, something from that former employer, like a separation letter or something like that would be needed. So when you're filling out the application, just make sure that you're listing all of your household income. So if you have anybody in the household who's receiving Social Security payments, pension payments, any of that sort of thing, unemployment benefits, make sure that that's all listed on your application. Just to go back to this slide here, so there's no minimum income for the affordable housing program, but most management companies, including the one at the Parkside, want to be sure that tenants can afford the rent, regardless of whether or not they are renting a market rate or a affordable apartment. So the management company has set a minimum household income equivalent to 2.5 times the monthly rent. So in order to be eligible for this opportunity to rent a 2-bedroom, which is the only bedroom available, or the only unit available, you'd have to make at least $81,800 per year to be eligible. So if you're a 2-person household, for example, you would need to make at least $81,800, but below $105,850 to be eligible for this lottery. The only exception to, well, actually, there's a couple exceptions, but the main exception to this minimum income amount that's set by the leasing office, if you have a Section 8 voucher or an MRVP voucher or any mobile voucher that you plan on using at this property, you can disregard the minimum income because it wouldn't apply to your household since the administering agency for your voucher is going to be picking up a portion of your rent, of course. And then if you have an income that is slightly below this $81,000 amount, the leasing office might still approve your household for this opportunity if you have liquid assets that are able to be drawn from in order to pay the rent. So maybe you have a lot of money in the bank, you're able to draw from that, and you'll be able to speak with them about that. So it's really going to be up to the leasing office. It's their decision as to whether or not, when they're doing your lease screening, if your household meets their minimum income requirements. But these maximum income limits are set by the program and are set in stone. So if you make, even just slightly over these maximum income amounts, you will unfortunately be denied for the lottery. There's no asset limit for the affordable rental opportunities. So you might have a significant amount of assets in the bank, maybe you're retired, you have a decent amount. There's no limit, like I said, you won't be found ineligible, but just know that we are still going to need to collect information related to your assets. So bank statements, the net cash value of any 401ks we will need to have information about, and that's because any income that is being generated by assets needs to be counted towards your total household income. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to review your lottery application once it comes in, and we'll contact you if anything appears to be missing or if there's any more information that we need from you. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent an email with your lottery application number. That number is going to be in the form of a series of numbers. So if you were the very first person to be approved for this lottery, your lottery application number is going to be A.001. It's just an anonymous number at this point. It's a number that's going to be drawn in the lottery for privacy purposes. We're not going to be calling out applicant names. So you want to hold on to that email and have it handy because you will need to know your lottery application number when the time for the lottery comes. That email is also going to confirm for you, just some information that was on your application. Just make sure that you're reviewing that email in full and letting us know if anything appears to be incorrect. If you're found to be ineligible for this lottery, maybe you're over income or under income, you'll be informed by email as well, and you're encouraged to contact us with any questions or if you think anything is incorrect. The lottery itself is going to take place on July 14th at 6 p.m. So keep in mind that you're not required to be present for the lottery, but the results will be shared with everyone that evening. Yeah, that's it on the lottery part. Everyone's number will be drawn in the lottery. Sometimes when you think of lotteries, you think, there's just going to be one winner of the lottery because there's only one apartment in this case. But that's not the way that these types of lotteries are held, or that's not the purpose of this lottery. So the purpose of the lottery is to establish an order of priority on the waiting list. So in general, it's more beneficial if your number is called early in the lottery and you're the first person on the waiting list, but it may not mean, that you are going to be able to lease the unit because you still have a couple other screenings to go after the lottery is held. So, for example, you might also not know if you are going to be first in the lottery first on the waiting list during the lottery itself, because remember that type 2 households are going to have priority over type 1 households. So if a type 1 household is called first in the lottery and they're not going to be first on the waiting list because the larger households are going to have priority on this 2-bedroom waiting list. So again, you should get, even if you don't attend the lottery by Zoom, you're going to get the results from us right away. You'll get them that evening. And at that point in the process, you'll see the waiting list. You'll know if you're going to be contacted or are expected to be in touch with the leasing office to do your lease screening. The leasing office may screen more than just that first person on the waiting list because a lot of times, even if there's one unit available, management companies want to screen more than one household to make sure that the leasing process is not slowed down by households who may not qualify for their lease screening. So once you get that email, you have about 5 days to get in touch with the leasing office. And once your lease approved, you'll be able to, if you haven't already, tour the property and reserve the apartment. And then the leasing office at the Parkside will let SCB Housing know that you've been lease approved, and we will then ask that you coordinate the submission of all of your income, asset, and tax verification. So bank statements, pay stubs, that sort of thing will need to come into us so we're able to confirm your program eligibility for the affordable housing program. And you have about 10 days to get that information into us. We understand that it is a lot of info, so we always make sure that we're working with households, and if you maybe need to submit a few more documents after the first try, we'll just submit or send a incomplete notice to you. So we'll go back and forth with you to make sure that you're able to get that completed application into us. And then if you're approved by the leasing office and then approved by SCB Housing, you will be able to sign your lease. And once you're leased, you're done with screenings until your lease renewal date. So after the first year of your lease, we hope that you want to remain at the Parkside. We hope that you want to continue living there. If you do, you'll need to recertify your income with the leasing office prior to your lease renewal. So if you signed a lease, for example, for August 1st of this year, around this time, or maybe April or May of 2026, you would be contacted to do your recertification. And if your income has increased at the time of your recertification next year, and it's now above that 80% of area median income, that's fine. Households can remain eligible to rent at the affordable apartment price, as long as the household income doesn't exceed 140% of that year's area median income. So an example of this is in the information packet, but if you're a household of two, you would have qualified for this lottery if your household had an income at or below $105,850. That same family can make up to $148,190 at the time of recertification in order to remain eligible to rent an affordable apartment. So your takeaway from that should be, if you get a raise or if you get a higher paying job, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be eligible for the affordable housing program at your recertification. There's some wiggle room built in there for program participants. So that about covers everything I wanted to get to. Again, most of this information is in the information packet. If you're reviewing this recording after the fact and you have any questions for us, please reach out to us either at info@scbhousing.com or by contacting us at this 617 number. And we look forward to getting your application for the Parkside in Wakefield. Have a good evening.